Hello, everyone. Welcome in. Welcome to the stream, guys. Today we're talking about game design. We're gonna have a little conversation. We're gonna talk about the night market here in a minute, but I want to talk about a little bit more of a broader subject that has come up and is apparently a topic of some debate. Which I'm going to be honest, I was surprised by. So the topic I want to discuss, it's in the title, is grinding intrinsic to is grinding
Hey guys,
intrinsic
it's
to
Naiharo.
to MMOs. And the reason I want to talk about this, maybe we'll switch over here. The reason I want to talk about this is comments I got on this night market video, and I just want to kind of look through some of these because I thought they were interesting. There's a handful, and we'll just pick them out. And it's just it's just a take. It's just an opinion. So you guys realize this isn't just, I'm not just making this up for content or something, but I thought it was really interesting. And I want to, as best we can, address the comments here. And I would like to steel man their arguments as best I can and just kind of talk about it because I think it is, I think there's some intrinsic confusion and misunderstanding, and I think a lot of it's semantics, and it's completely understandable. And so the cool news is, I think we can get to the other side of it. So let me see here. We've got serious turn class identity. Yeah, actually, I think there was. No, that's different. I thought this was supposed to be in response to something. What do they say? I can't believe people are defending this. Making a trial more difficult to get to is a wild way to add interest to a trial and incentivize doing overland content. And then let me see. I already had to convince myself to do regular trials when I really want gear. Okay, that's not exactly the opinion we're looking for. I can't believe people are crying over something that was asked for. This kind of feels like, I don't want to write anybody off for shit posting. For those who don't know, shit posting is a thing. It's essentially a very low effort post that's kind of just let me, you're stupid, and then they move on or whatever. And so I don't want to accuse anybody of that, but some of these come close, and I've done that myself. I think it's normal human nature, but a low effort post that can be a little bit hard to to do anything with. Did they follow up? I don't know anyone that was. Yeah, I don't think that's really what we're looking for. Where we go? All right, somewhere down here. Oh man, there were definitely some. I'm trying to find them. Sounds like Bash and Nimics all over again. Is it more difficult? They said it was going to be more difficult than with the night market. Here we go. Grind is part of MMO. I do not mind it as a concept, but for trials, I like having a regular progress group, and the thought of all that having to grind the week away to maybe have everyone available to enter. Nope. Yeah, so here's somebody who's saying grinding is a part of MMOs. And then we got another person, maybe you do the grind to get the keys, which you keep the whole season, three months, so then you have access to the dungeon. Okay, so they're just offering a different way of doing it. We've got a few more, though. I'm generally okay with grind. The problem here is the fact that here is not optional. You must grind to access the content. This is literal insanity. Okay. If they're adding a complex grind system, then make it a 100% drop rate. The grind is fine, but they took it to the extreme. So, we're getting a couple of them. And I guess maybe it was a minority of comments that just kind of popped out to me. But, some of that I assume is curated because my audience and everything. So here's the deal. I think the one of the core things is I use grind in different ways, and some of those ways are not negative. However, in this particular video and in general, I would consider grind to be intrinsically, it has a negative connotation intrinsically to me. Now, sometimes we talk about grind, I'll be like, oh, I used to love AoE grinding in WoW to level up. I thought it was fun. You got to get everybody gathered up. You drop a bunch of AoEs. You kind of kite the mobs. High risk, high reward kind of thing. It was my favorite way to level. Okay, um, because you guys know I'm not a huge quester. And was it that it was that much fun, or was it just not the least worst thing for me to do? I think probably the latter. And but I would say, hey, I like grinding. I there's parts of it that I enjoyed. There's something cathartic about doing that kind of stuff, I think. But in general, I would say that grinding is by definition a negative thing. And again, we use it sometimes to refer to positive things. So what I mean by it being a negative thing is that it's essentially I have to do this thing. I've got to grind this thing out. It's almost always in the context of I have to do this thing that I don't want to do so that I can get to the thing I do want to do. And so I think that is essentially, I don't think it's good. A lot of people, some of these other comments were, I think, yeah, here you go. I don't know. Sounds a lot like exploration zones in Final Fantasy 14. Grind bosses over and over again. So you get kind of this idea that's what it is for people. I think the real problem with the night market in ESO, and we'll talk about more about this towards the end, is that for the night market, you have one difficulty. And ZOS, I don't think, has learned their lesson over many, many iterations of content. Yeah, Zine here says, Zine Ninja says, it's a repetitive filter activity. Yeah, okay. Do you want to say more about what you mean by filter? Or I'm sorry, filler activity. That makes more sense. Okay. It's a repetitive filler activity. Yeah, exactly. I think that, and I think what a lot of people, though, will talk about MMOs, and they're like, yeah, you got to grind to get this thing, and how fun that is. I think often what they actually mean, as far as what they like, and this is like the positive side of grind, is not positive. The positive side of grind, there we go, put the quotation marks in the right place there, is that essentially what I think people want, judging by some of the contents. And again, if you have this opinion, I would love to hear it. I would love to have that conversation. So please drop a comment in the chat. Explain it to me more fully, because I don't mean to strawman anyone's argument. I'm just trying to understand. But it seems to me like a lot of people, what they mean is they want progression. And as far as progression, I am all about it. Now, to give you a couple of examples here of grind versus progression. So in ESO, to get Crypt Cannon. Yeah, Crypt Cannon's vestments or something like that. It's a mythic. I don't remember what the full name is. We just call it Crypt Cannon, which is part of the name. And to get that, I think it's the Telvanni Peninsula. There's a handful of things you got to do to get the leads, but one of them is from dailies in there, and I think also another one is from the treasure chests. Both of those are ridiculous. And it seemed like the treasure chest is or was broken. I think it still might be, or at least nonsensical. It was crazy hard to grind out. You have to just get so many chests. And then the dailies is the same deal. Now, when you're doing those activities over and over again, you got to ask yourself, like, is this fun? That is the most important thing. And I think the answer to that for most people is no. Why am I having to go do a daily that presumably I'm not doing anyways, right? So that I can get the opportunity to get this. And I will say, even if you're like, you know what? I kind of like dailies. I personally do. Doing some of the world bosses, going and soloing world bosses, that can be very fun. It depends what it is. Some of the delves, like, I mean, it is kind of fun sometimes to run through and get everything together and then burn it down. But like my level of frustration there is like pretty low. If I go to some of the newer delves, it's like confusing how to get through them. And the whole point, it feels like, is to make it seem like make it harder and make it not so simple. But to me, that is just really annoying. And I'm like, this isn't fun. This doesn't make it more difficult. It's just annoying. I don't know how to get through here. And again, it makes me do content I don't really want to do. World bosses, a little bit better. I'm like, oh yeah, going and soloing a world boss is like not the worst thing in the world. They all have mechanics. If I'm solo, I'll probably have to do some of those mechanics. That's fun. If there's a bunch of people there, I mean, I'm just trying to get a couple hits in. It really doesn't matter. So the idea is that you're being forced essentially, and then, if you enjoy it the first time, cool. Are you still enjoying it the sixth time? I don't think so. And in the case of a mythic, if you're trying to get it for an organized group like you would with Crypt Cannon, hey Nani, like you would with Crypt Cannon, which is really what it's entirely group focused. If you go in there and you're doing it for that purpose, and you realize that, you need it for your run in 3 days. Well, now it's like, I mean, maybe even sooner, but it means you got to go do it, and you got to go do all those things. You got to do it now. And so then you're doing chores, you're doing gaming chores. And again, I think this is intrinsically bad. Now, what is an example of something that would be maybe more fun? That is the conversation about progression. And in theory, what we have going on with the night market is somewhat similar to that, I would say. The theory with the night market, it's a little weird being on the screen. Maybe we'll just refresh. There we go. The theory with the night market, I think, is, hey, let's have you got to go do the 4-man content. You got to go do the open world dungeon content, and then you can get to the 4-man content, and then you can get to the 12-man content. The problem with that is that the people that do the 12-man content most often are going to find especially like veteran 12-man content, not normal trials. We all normal things are generally very low difficulty, and they're generally pretty flat. There are normal dungeons, normal trials that are all roughly the same difficulty, some a little bit more than others, but generally it's pretty close, right? And it's also pretty low. So even if there are differences, it's still relatively low at total as far as difficulty. And so you have someone who's going in who has to now do the public dungeon, essentially public dungeon content, and they don't find that challenging at all. And if you make it, well, we'll go through that actually in a second. So, they're having to do, and then 4-man content. A lot of people don't run dungeons because, again, they're a lot easier than trials. And so, especially the higher difficulties on trials compared to the higher difficulties on dungeons. And so you have people that aren't really engaged with the content. Now, hopefully, ZOS aims for the middle ground, and a great number of people find that really enjoyable. That's awesome. That's a great thing to happen. But by necessity, there's going to be a lot of people left out. Let's catch up on these comments. I just did that for the new Mythic, Nani says. Yeah, Nani, how would you describe your experience doing that? Would you say it was fun? I'm gonna go on a limb and guess that it probably wasn't. Some of them can be okay. Some of the new ones, I think they've done better. The Rakat's Void Mantle, probably one of the easiest Mythics I've ever gotten. I heard there's one more that's even easier, which might be the one you just did, Nani, actually, now that I think about it. Hey, what's up, Puppy Boss? I can see your message, man. I think they're either taking an incredibly long time. I think they are just taking an incredibly long time to show up on my on screen here. But let me see. Zine says Zenin. I'm sorry, Zenin. Zenin. No. Zine Ninja. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, cool. Zine says it's just easier for the devs to pad out their content hours with grind than unique content and activities. You only play once a playthrough. The trick to good grind is making it something you actually want to play over and over again. Zine, you're getting ahead of the class, man. No, I think you have a good point there, but again, I would say that really what you've done there is you haven't created grind. I think we get a little bit loose. I would like to define and say that is not grind. Because again, I would define grind as intrinsically having a negative connotation. So I would say what a developer has actually done there is they've created fun and engaging content that players enjoy doing over and over again. And that is a lot different than grind. And I know, again, I know I do it too. I use grind in a positive connotation sometimes, but I think in its truest form so that we can have a conversation, I personally, and I am defining grind as and I think generally, colloquially, is referred this way as a negative thing. Zine says, it's a fun activity people won't mind doing repetitively as much. Yeah. Knight, I hate to say it. I'm not sure what you're saying there, Sniper. I think autocorrect got you, man. Nani says, I put it off as long as I could. Right, because there's dread about having to grind up a mythic, having to grind up, that kind of stuff. It wasn't bad because it was a mix of world bosses and delves and dungeons. I did have friends to help. Yeah. Another example of a different kind of grind than in quality that we can talk about is and if you don't play ESO, I'm gonna explain what this is, but I'll give the shorthand for the ESO peeps. Excuse me. Oh, you just said hi. Okay. Hello, man. It's good to see you. It said something about aging, and I was like, I'm not really sure. I am aging. I suppose we all are. So with not scribing, no. Sigic, scribing we could talk about too. With the Sigic order, right? There was a while, and it could still be very helpful. It's a lot less now, but for the longest time, before multi-classing, before scribing and stuff like that, to do the Sigic order was pretty helpful for a tank. And there was even a time when like one of the skills in there was like the meta spammable for everybody, LE weapon, if those who remember. And then race against time is incredibly useful on any class that doesn't have a source of speed boost. And so you would need to go do that on your tank. Now, the first time you do that Sigic order quest line, it starts off and it goes fairly rapidly to like a lower level, and then it gets really slow. And if you want that on all of your characters, so the first time you do it, it's not bad. It goes really fast in the beginning, and then it gets way too slow. The middle and the end, it gets really slow. And it is also a thing where you might be going because you need a skill. You need that skill line leveled up. And so you might be doing it because your group or your dungeon group, your trial group needs you to have a skill, or you really want to have a skill so you can compete with everybody else. Now you're having to force yourself to go through that content quickly. Not enjoy it, not take your time, not enjoy the quest line. It's a means to an end. And I think that is one of the factors, like core factors, you were to like list them out, like this would definitely be up there, is for something when it becomes grind. So unenjoyable, of course, right? Like when it's not fun. The second part of that is, or a part of that, I don't know about numbers, but another part of that, another line item there would be when you're doing content and it is, it's just like that. I don't know. There's nothing else to say. Like you have to rush through it so that you can get to the end. You can get the thing you're trying to get, and you're not enjoying the content, even if the content is enjoyable. But the difference here between a lot of other things and talking about the Sigic is like, it might be fun the first time, and let's just say it is. And I thought it was in general. I think there were some problems with it, but generally it was fun. Then whenever you get to the point where you're doing it on your second character, your third character, what if it's your fifth character? Oh my God, you're over it. You are tired of doing it. You do not want to be doing it any longer. Sorry, I got to switch and charge up this light over here. But things change dramatically at that point, and you are no longer probably having fun. At least not for a lot of people. Sorry, I gotta. Streamer problems. My light is battery powered and sits close to the window, and when it gets too cold, it just dies. Zine says, so if it becomes fun and replayable, it becomes not grind. I see where you're coming from. Grind is supposed to be a slog. Yeah, exactly, Zine. Are they added a new thing to the Elder Scrolls? Yeah, they're adding the night market is what we're talking about, Sniper, which is something I did a video on earlier in the week, man, and a live stream on. So that's another way that something could be fun and then becomes a grind. Now, a lot of times these companies, and this is kind of wild. It's a very, you can find YouTube videos about this, guys. I don't recommend you probably go watch them. But you can find educational from like colleges and other speakers that are educating, future game developers or current ones. And, some of the things that they'll talk about is, having people play your game for a long time. The more time people play a game, the more enjoyment they're getting out of it, but also typically the more money they're willing to spend on it. Makes sense, right? And I mean, video games oftentimes are a great value when compared to certain, I mean, it depends, depends what you're comparing it to. If you're comparing it to a hike that is pretty much free, it's expensive. If you're comparing it to going to a movie at a movie theater, oh my God, it's so cheap, right? Like that's $10 to $20 an hour if you're going to the movie theater per person. Whereas video games are, $40 for $60, whatever, for a very long time. Typically, depends on the game, of course. So, people are willing to spend more money. So game developers, they look at this especially the big companies, they look at it from a science perspective. They're not looking at, and yes, there are people, the companies will look at it different ways, but they're looking at it from a financial perspective, and they want to get you playing longer. And so what they look at is playtime. How can we get people to play more? And they don't look at it from the aspect of how do we make an incredibly fun game that more people want to play? Now, of course, the game designers themselves, the people actually making the game, hopefully, although again, I'm telling you about, lessons to college kids, people that are actually making games about how to get more money out of your audience is, get them to play more, get them to grind, and how to get them hooked on various gambling mechanics and other things so that they want to keep grinding. And the sad thing is it works. It works on me. It works on you. To varying degrees, certainly. I think the main thing is when you understand that's what's going on, that helps a lot. So, I mean, if you want to talk about ESO, for example, I don't want to do PTS, but whatever, we'll just load in. Actually, I think I logged into PTS already once today, so we'll just force quit this. ESO, whenever you log in, you get a daily reward. Well, why do you get a daily reward? Well, they want you to log in every day. So they give you a daily reward, right? And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to train you so that it's a habit and so that you don't think twice about it. And then the other thing they're trying to do is with, having the the crafting dailies, for example, they make it where for the longest time that's where you got the best rewards, is just by doing the crafting dailies over and over again. Very easy to do. Didn't take too long, although if you did them on all your characters, you're talking about 15 minutes, 30 minutes, it could take a while. And that's if you have it down to a science and you're also on a PC where you have add-ons that'll do it all for you. And the whole point of that is to get you in a habit of logging in daily. And then maybe they get you to go do a random normal dungeon because you get rewards for that, right? Daily rewards. They're just trying to train you in a habit of playing the game. Now, another thing there is here, and another cost to this that I don't think that people understand or take into account, is that if they can get you to log in for 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes a day, certainly if you're doing a random normal dungeon, how much time does the average person have to play any other game? The answer to that is 0. The average person does not have much more time than that. And if they switch games, now that they've already done something in one game, they've got to kind of switch gears, right? And you got to load up the other game. You got to think about what you're doing. And so there's a bigger barrier to playing other games. So they keep you hooked in their environment. And then the whole idea is that they keep, giving you things just enough so that you will keep playing and that you'll keep justifying spending more money. All the ways to easy pad out their play hours. They just need to find ways to pad them out in a way that's actually fun for players instead of making it a nothing chore for people. Exactly. Again, Zine is very much ahead of the curve here. That is really, I got a daily reward, right? We logged in, we got our daily reward. We get it doesn't even matter what it is, right? Like some of them will be better, some of them will be worse, but it doesn't really matter. And then maybe we get in and we do our dungeon finder, right? We get 3x to XP and we get better daily rewards. And, this is stuff you need. You could also do your daily battlegrounds and what have you. And so this is what this is designed for. Now, not to get too far ahead to where Zine's at. Now, the question then remains, well, what is the deal with the new night market? So I really just want to show the login stuff. So I know it's kind of weird to log in just for that. But what is the deal with the night market? Well, one of the things it is essentially ZOS saying that, like, hey, we want to bring things up to the current, current best practices. And I think this is partially Microsoft, to be honest with you. That's what they're trying to do. And it could be something as simple as like, hey, we do this with our other games, do it with yours so that we're all doing the same thing, right? Or it could be that the financial people, they're sharing between companies, and now you have a different people in the background telling the games companies how to make more money or how we do things for best practices. And I really think that is what is actually going on here. Now, is it that well thought out? Is it that contrived? Maybe not. Maybe not. This is all the stuff I'm saying is should be common knowledge to any developer, plus a bunch of other knowledge, right? This is pretty common knowledge. So what we ideally want in the game as I still love that troll. I know. I love this. I love this troll for the memes. Someone was like, I've never seen someone actually wear this. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I wear it for the memes. Zine says, that way it's a mutually beneficial symbiotic relationship between the player and the developer. And that's the place where a game wants to be at, ideally. Yeah, I absolutely agree. So here's a question, Zine. I mean, Zine is like, got all the right answers, right? Why don't all games do that, Zine? What's your take on that? I think you're gonna have a pretty straightforward answer to it, but I'd be curious what your thoughts are. Why doesn't all games companies instead of making things grindy, why don't they make it where it's a fun play loop? Because, I can tell you with something like Helldivers. Helldivers is a game that I absolutely love. I think it's incredibly fun. I play it on stream and it doesn't do very well, but I do it because I'm going to play Helldivers anyway, so I might as well stream it. And I play off stream too, but that's kind of my take with Helldivers. Excuse me one moment. So Zine says, oh, did we get too high with that? It's a little dark in here without my light. Zine says, they'll do as little as they can get away with, I think, honestly. That's fair. That's absolutely fair. I think another way of approaching that, or another way of looking at it too, is because it's difficult. It's difficult to make fun and engaging content for people. It is hard to make games fun, and especially if you look, guys. There's comparable industries. Agree. Yeah. I think we are basically saying the same thing. If you look at comparable industries, another one that I've mentioned before, and I'll continue to mention, is the movie industry. Movie industries. Why? We all know this hopefully by now. If you care about the movie industry at all, if you've ever been curious about this, you probably know this because it's been going on for a long time now, probably a couple of decades almost at this point. But we noticed it after 5 or 7 years. But movies, you see so many sequels. Why are there sequels? Why is it always like that? Well, the reason it's like that is because if they make a sequel to a popular franchise, a popular movie, that's the other half. Sequels and then already established franchises from something else. And why do they do that? They do that because it's a high risk thing to make a movie. If you make a original movie and it's not good, okay? And it's not good, then it bombs and you lose a shit ton of money. Okay. And they're investing in these movies because they want to make a profit. They're not investing for the love of the game. They're not investing for anything else. They want to max the people that are funding the movies want to maximize their profit. Yeah. 100% and time. Yeah. They want to maximize their profit. So, what do they do? Well, you can spend that that money and you can take a risk, and you know what, you might hit it out of the park, but more likely you're going to kind of do okay, or you're going to bomb. Now if you take risk versus reward. Now if you take an established franchise, if you put out a Star Wars movie, there are some number of people that are going to go see it no matter what. I am a sucker for like good. I'm a sucker, not even good, bad sci-fi. I'm a sucker for sci-fi movies. I watch movies that I would tell you are bad, and I watch them. Okay, I have tried to watch all of the Highlander movies, if that tells you anything, and oh my god, they're friggin' terrible, most of them. The show, the show is amazing. The movies are like train wrecks. Just what the hell is going on? So it's a safe bet. And game developers, or rather the people behind, the money behind game developing is, you know what? Yeah, try to make a good game. But if you just follow these practices, we're guaranteed to get more people. We know this works. We can manipulate people, use psychology of, the psychology of reward, the psychology of addiction and gambling to get people hooked so that they'll play and they'll spend more. So yeah, make a good game if you can, but let's make sure that we're doing everything we can. They're trying to mitigate risk. And again, the thing is with both of these groups is there's something inherent, okay? And the thing that is inherent, you might look at certain people who have made movies. I'm talking about actors, directors, other people behind the scenes that do various things on movies. Those people know how to make a movie, and you can tell that because there's some of them that have a very long history of making really good movies, and it's consistent. And so if you can get that reputation, you can get money easier, right? But the people that are just giving out money, especially if it's somebody that's new, it's a new concept, it's a new whatever, and when you think about, going from movies to games, there's so many different kinds of games. There's so many different, whatever. And this has happened with tabletop games as well. So the developers of Dungeons and Dragons 4E were essentially given what I want to say, the marching orders they were given. The game they were told to create was WoW. The people over at Wizards of the Coast, the money, the people with them that are, behind the money said, make World of Warcraft. This was early 2000s. World of Warcraft was huge. It had blown up. It was a cultural phenomenon. It made the national news how much people were playing, reigniting the do video games or does it increase delinquency and cause violence, or is it just bad? Is it addictive or whatever for kids or whatever? And so that's how big it was, right? It was huge. And so they wanted them to make that. And the game they made is complete garbage. Now, I think it's garbage for a different reason than it was based on WoW. I actually think it has more to do with the fact the game plays it's like a board game, not like an RPG. I think they made a board game, and I think that's the main problem with it, honestly. But we can go. That's a topic I would love to discuss, maybe for another time. But still, they were given, hey, make this thing because it'll be profitable, right? And so you have with digital games too, so many different things you can do. But generally, people are known to play MMOs a lot more. But again, when you think about an MMO, I don't even know if most people understand what the core concept of an MMO is. I'm going to say that most people don't even know. I don't think most gamers know. I don't even know if most game developers know. I don't even know if I know. I've got something I would put forth as an idea, but I could be wrong. I think that there are people that are knowledgeable, so even if they didn't know, we could probably agree on some key factors and everything else. But I think for the finance people, is they just look at it and they say people play MMOs and they spend money on them. They keep playing them. Why is that? Well, there's a social aspect. If your friends are playing, you're more likely to play. Again, we have psychology research on that. Games companies know about this, right? So games companies, even though people play MMOs solo, they will try to get people oftentimes to do things socially. And the reason, and it can even be a meta thing. It can even be everybody get in on this Reddit thread or engage with us on social media, even if you play solo. And the reason they do that is because they're trying to create a feeling of community, and then you play the games that your friends play. The number one thing that people tell me they regret when they quit playing an MMO, and the number one thing people tell me that makes them continue to play an MMO even though they're done with it, is people. They miss their friends, they miss playing with their friends, and or they're afraid, if they haven't quit yet, of not getting to hang out and see their friends as much. That's what it is. And so, part of the reason of having the Discord too, just as an FYI to you guys, is to have a place that we can all be social and then we can all be friends and we can all engage some as much as you want, and be a place that even if you go and you're not playing ESO, you're not playing whatever. I mean, it's not a lot, but it's a way we can kind of keep in touch. It's not a huge social thing. I'm not in there all the time or whatever, but that is the whole, that's the whole point of the Discord is to be able to keep, and what, even if we don't play this game anymore, maybe in 5 years, we'll be playing some other game together. And so that's the whole point, And so again, though, to get back kind of a little bit more on topic, is games companies know all this. And so they're trying to create things that make money, because games need to make money. It's an important thing. So what is going on a little bit more with ESO and with the night market here? Well, I would describe this whole experience as incredibly grindy. I personally would. Now, other people might have a different perspective. And I think this is something that ESO should have really learned a long time ago. Here, we're going to die real quick. I think that this is something they really should have learned a long time ago. And I don't think they just haven't. They haven't learned it yet. And it's kind of wild, because I think there's 3 incredibly clear times where they should have learned it. Okay. I'm going to talk about one of those because it's the one I'm the most familiar with. There's actually been more than that, I am positive, but there's in recent memory, there's been 3. I would be curious if you guys have any thoughts on this. But what I would posit as the main issue with the night market and content like this, and this has happened again many times with ESO, is I come in here, right? Well, the highest parsing player in ESO can parse 150k. They can do 150k damage, okay? Give or take. The average player in ESO probably doesn't even parse 60k. All right. So there is one group that is doing 2.5 times more damage than other people, than maybe even than the average. And then there are people that are going to be below that. Okay. So how do you design content that is, the average person doesn't even know what a parse is? I'm being corrected. Thank you very much, Donnie. I appreciate it. Okay. I was trying to steel man the other side, but I certainly thank you so much for, okay. Average person doesn't even know what a parse is. Okay. They have no idea what damage they're doing. Right. I actually had a friend recently to talk on this issue, a little bit more. I had a friend recently who, I know from another game, and they said that they were looking at guides. They were looking at Hack the Minotaur guides, and I think anybody who knows Hack the Minotaur guides would tell you not to use them. There's some that are fine. Many more that are very bad, are just not very good. And then he was like, "Well, what about Outcast?" And basically, he just Googled, right? And he's going off of search results. And Outcast, same deal. Some of them are okay. Most of them are not good. And most of them are incredibly old. And he just wanted a written guide. And he was like, well, I'm just going to use this for whatever reason. I think he was, whatever reason. He wanted to use. I was like, all right, cool. Do it. And he said, he did it. And he was like, I'm not having a problem. And the reason for that is because if you run around Overland, you can run around naked with no gear and light attack things and kill stuff Overland. That's how difficult Overland is. And let me prove the point here. Actually, let's get naked. Let's port to an average zone, and we'll go kill something. And this is, I know you can do this because this is what my wife does. Outcasts are usually updated, or usually outdated. I'm sorry. It is what I used several years ago because it came up first in Google. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not hating on that. But the thing is, oh God, did I go to why am I inside? Did I port to like the one place inside? Oh, there we go. All right. Um, and it's understandable, it's fair, and the answer is like the average overland content is just incredibly easy. So yeah, it doesn't really matter what you do. And I do think that is a problem for the game, because I do think that whenever you get to anything that's kind of difficult, it becomes incredibly difficult, and you haven't had anything to prepare. Can I find an enemy? Can I find an enemy to light attack to death? Maybe, maybe not. Oh, there we go. Oh, man, there's two of them. Oh, interrupt? Okay, I'll interrupt. All right, we've taken no damage, and we killed the guys. That's overland content for you. And I moved around a little bit there. I apologize. I could have just stood there. Here we go. Nick Sound. We got some skeevers too. I'm literally just light attacking. Literally just. I would argue that you cannot die like this. Okay, naked. Just have a one piece of gear on. So yeah, it doesn't matter how good your build is. You're going to be fine with overland. Oh, here we go. Here's a Nick's Ox. That's got to be difficult. Yeah, and we're just light attacking and we're killing it, and it's not doing any damage to us. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Okay, I really don't want to sit here and light attack things to death all day. That's going to make me want to stab myself in the eye. But, the people that don't feel like overland content is too easy, I just don't know what's going on. And I think the problem with some of those builds too is then when people get into harder content, then they find out how bad the build is, it can be really difficult. But it's whatever. All right, so this is the average player's experience. There are players that will still find overland difficult, right? And we know that because they've told us. And I'm taking them at their word. I think that's fair. All good. I'm not trying to hate on anybody. It's a little perplexing to me, but I'm certainly not trying to hate on anybody, right? Like, we all have different levels, and there are kids that play, there are, all kinds of stuff. The question that arises from all of this is, how do you design content? And just in case you haven't put all these together, guys, everything we've been talking about today is related. How do you make content for the person who doesn't even know what a parse is, compared to the person that is at the top of the game, or even really high at the game, honestly? Because even if you're only parsing 130K, 120K, you're still 3 times as good as the average player, if not more. Minimum, you're 3 times as good, okay? How do you make content that is for someone with 3 times the skill level? Think about anything else you've ever played, okay? Think about physical sports, think about board games, think about other digital games. Have you ever played a game with someone else that was like, you had somebody in the group who was literally multiple times as good as everybody else? How are you going to compete? Okay, this is like having an adult, okay, playing on a team. Let's play, you're playing softball, right? And you've got a bunch of children, okay, that are old enough to play softball, but they're still children, okay? If the healthy adult plays at all to their ability, literally no one else can compete with them, right? They could probably win the game single-handedly, and that is assuming that you're playing in a big team sport where their contribution is relatively small in a lot of ways. It's just, and I know we're dropping frames, guys. I don't know what's going on. It's a lot of times Friday at this time. I think my internet gets a little throttled. It gets a little I don't think there's anything I can do on my end. I'm sorry. So how do you design content for those two groups and make it the same content? And I think the simple answer to that is you absolutely cannot. I have not found, and again, saying you can't do something or something can't be done, I think is a failure of imagination. So I don't really mean that. Something could be done. What ZOS has tried to do so far is Like, so one example, right, with the Infinite Archive, right? With the Infinite Archive, these guys made a piece of content with no difficulties. And again, they have told us, the creative director, Rich Lambert, has told us that they made that with only one level of difficulties because that was easy. It was easy to do. He said that in different words, but he said basically that in interviews, okay? How do you make content for all these different groups of people? Well, their idea with the Infinite Archive was you start off and it's really easy and eventually it'll get really hard. Okay, and you can go infinitely. And it's a roguelike. And really, he again said that he always wanted to make a roguelike since college. And I think maybe Finn or some other people agreed. And so that's what they did, right? Again, they didn't make it because they thought we would like it. They made it because they wanted to make it. So that's kind of a problematic there on its surface. But how does it work? It doesn't work because people that are very skilled are like, why do I want to spend hours and hours grinding, or even 45 minutes to even get to the part that starts to be fun? I don't want to do that. I'm just not going to do it. I might do it a little bit, but I'm not going to do it a lot. And that's just one example. And ESO does this over and over and over again. The other answer is the night market here. They have made essentially a literal pyramid scheme, right, of content where you have these first bosses that you're going to fight. Sorry if this is a bit of a spoiler for people. These first bosses are like public dungeons, but more difficult. Okay, this content is more difficult, but they've also told us that it's meant for groups. And so my group came in with a tank because we figured, hey, you should have a tank. And they said it's for group content. But it's just more difficult than most public dungeons. And public dungeons, I'm sorry if I said group dungeons. And so this is pretty trivial content, okay? But then in theory, maybe it gets a little bit harder, and then you've got some dungeons. And then you've eventually got a trial. Or maybe it's not, right? Maybe this is all the same difficulty. How are you going to make this content, though, for multiple groups of players? Well, the answer for ZOS is they're not. They didn't. They're not going to. They seem like, I don't know why. I don't know why they think this is going to work for people, but it doesn't. It's not enjoyable. The average solo player is going to come in here and they're going to get absolutely wrecked. Okay? The average player for ESO is going to come in here and they're going to tell you it's way too hard. Other people are going to tell you it's way too easy. And it's all over the place. And here's the thing, they're all right. It's either too hard or too easy for them. And so, again, instead of making multiple difficulties and multiple levels or some way addressing that, they have done nothing. They have done nothing to address the difficulty. They have literally created zones, populated with monsters, the same thing they've been doing for 12 years, and then called it good. Now, this is, again, intrinsically going to set the community against each other because some people are going to be saying it's too damn easy and some people are going to be saying it's too damn hard. Now, let's take a step back. What do other games do to deal with this? Well, let's pick one. It's on my mind because I'm going to play it after this, and I was playing it yesterday. Helldivers. Helldivers has 10 levels of difficulty. 10 levels of difficulty, okay? There are 10 adjustable levels of difficulty. In addition to that, that's just the ones you can set. In addition to that, some planets will have modifiers and will have special units that further increase or decrease the difficulty considerably. And there's several other factors. Exactly what loadout you're bringing, a lot of other things, okay? ESO. ESO has normal, veteran, and hard mode, right? This is one of the ways they've addressed that. Now, they've long had the problem that normal is incredibly easy, and then there is, or it's a good difficulty for many very beginning players. I actually like it for that. But then there's this gigantic, I don't want to say it's easy. It's good for beginning players. There's this huge, huge jump when you go from normal to veteran. We all know this. It's been this way forever. And there's another huge jump when you go from veteran to hard mode. But they have 3 difficulties. What they're doing with this kind of content is not doing any of that. And why are they doing that? Because, as Zine pointed out earlier, because it's easy. It's a lot easier to just only do one level of difficulty. It's a lot quicker, it's a lot less work, and so they only do one level of difficulty. Now, what are some ways? Now, to be positive, let's think about like what are some ways, and I would really be curious if you guys have any thoughts on this. What do you think are some ways in which ESO could solve this problem? And I have spent all of about 5 minutes thinking about this, but I will propose one myself. Okay, one way you could largely deal with this without too much of an issue, and I don't think this is perfect. Okay. Well, first off, they could make it where there's still difficulties, right? You could depict your difficulty. Because I think as it stands right now, the night market is going to be incredibly unpopular. I think that it's probably going to be unpopular. Because I think there's, no matter what the difficulty level is, there's going to be a lot of people that it's going to be either too easy or too hard for. So I think they're going to get feedback that it's bad. And I think they're going to go, see, we can't design harder overland content because people don't like it. And it's not because it's harder overlaying content. So veteran, hard mode, normal difficulties, that's one of the ways they dealt with it. Another way you could deal with it in the night market is when you go kill these monsters, right? So there's two bosses, as we could see here. There's two bosses in each of these areas, and then there's the roving boss as well. Okay, so like the bigger boss. What you could do, one of the problems they have is that if you engage. If you go through and you engage with, oh, why aren't they here? There should be boss markers here, I think. Maybe I don't know where they're at. Anyways, if you go through and if you make it difficult enough that it's actually fun for more experienced players, it's going to be way too difficult for less experienced players, right? That's a big problem. So they can't have a lot of mechanics, because if they have mechanics are one of the primary ways that you make things more difficult. And so if you have mechanics, some people aren't going to be able to do them. So that's a problem. Well, one of the things they could do is that after you kill a boss, and I should go to some areas where actually we can see the bosses. One of the things, spending a few minutes thinking about it, okay, and there are problems with this, is that you could make it where you kill the boss, instead of it being a huge damage sponge, you can still give it plenty of health, but once it dies, a different boss immediately spawns. And then when that new boss spawns, it's a more difficult version. And essentially you're playing zombie mode, or whatever you want to call it, right? There's a lot of names for this. And so each iteration becomes more difficult and maybe adds mechanics that you have to do. And has more health, but also the main thing is it's more difficult to do. That would be an interesting way of dealing with this. You kill one, a new one immediately spawns. Now, why am I killing the second or the third or the fourth boss? Well, there needs to be better rewards. So you need to, first off, another opportunity for the same loot that dropped on the first guy. Okay. But you probably want it even better, because that really incentivizes people to want to keep killing. And you just keep going. And hey, if you get to the point where you can't do it, you wipe, you still get your loot, everything's good, and you have a reason to want to keep going. You have a reason to want to keep going, and it feels like hopefully you're challenging. Now, having to kill 3 or 4 bosses to get to the one that's finally difficult and dropping decent loot, if I'm getting good loot along the way, and if it doesn't take too long, I'm fine with it. This is essentially the Endless Archive, but just like crazy shrank down. Instead of taking 45 minutes to start to get to the part where it's challenging, hopefully only it takes a couple of minutes, okay? That could be one way. And then you could increase the drop rate, and the really sweaty people, if they want to come in here with their trial group, they can go 12 deep, right? And many other games do this, right? This is a roguelike, kind of thing, and you get more rewards. That would be a very simple way of, I think, improving the market here. But as it stands, there's no way that they can balance this in such a way that it's going to be fun for most of the player base. There's some particular group of people that they're probably going to have to try to aim for, which is where their core audience is, but they've already kind of shown us that they don't even know what that is. And they've shown us that they don't know what that is because they've had to ask us to tell them. And so if they've asked us to tell them, then it means they don't know. And so that is just one way. I don't know. Do you guys have any other suggestions, other things where they could really solve this problem? For me, this is like an intrinsic problem that I just don't think that can be solved. I think that without doing something different, like it just doesn't solve itself. Is what I mean. Not that it can't be solved, but if you have one level of difficulty and then you have people, it's like trying to, again, it's the same thing. It's like trying to have in the same league of any sports team, like almost literal professionals versus like a kids team. How do you make that fair and fun for everybody? Like you don't, unless the professional team just realizes they're just there to mess around and waste like it's just a social experience for them. But if they're not into that social experience, then it's not going to be very fun for them. And so I think that's an inherent problem with all this, that there's not really going to be a solution for. Endless Archive certainly didn't solve that problem, right? And neither has some of the other overland content that they've created. The Writhing Wall event, pretty disappointing, I think, largely for some of these reasons. So I don't think that MMOs have to be intrinsically grindy, but WoW has its mythic system where, stuff gets more and more difficult and you can just go as deep as you want to go and you get better rewards. And so it's kind of a chase for people. So I don't know. It sounds like nobody's chiming in with thoughts on the game design. That's cool. I understand. I'm very into this stuff. I know not everybody is. But I think that's the issue that's going to be with the night market. And it's the same issue that some people are saying. A lot of people that I hear saying the grind is just part of MMOs. I don't think it is. I don't think it needs to be. It's just hard to make fun and engaging content. And I think the people that are really defending the grind, there's two groups of people. I think the larger group of people is those that are saying, I actually enjoy the thing that you're calling grind. I think that's fun. In which case it's not grind by my definition. It is fun and engaging content. And then if the other group of people, and I hesitate to say this because I don't want it to sound like name calling. That's not at all how I mean this, but there literally are people that pride themselves on wasting time playing games. And it's like, I spent 30 hours doing this thing. I've earned something. And I've been that person. I get it. I know people that are like that. I don't think it's very healthy. I'll put it that way. I know a friend in WoW who spent, I don't know how many hours, getting a title that was like the Insane. And to get it, you had to raise your reputation with various factions, with two different factions, to like the top level. And doing that with one faction took like hundreds of hours, if not thousands. I don't even know. Took a ton of hours. But if you raised your reputation with one faction, by necessity, while that happened, you were decreasing your reputation with the other faction. So what you had to do is you had to raise one of them to the top and lower the other one to the very bottom so they hate you, and then you had to reverse that to be able to get this title. And there's an area where you had to get like lock boxes. You had to like pickpocket and get some lock boxes or something. And it was goblins. I remember vaguely this. And he was so proud of that. And he was like, yeah, I got this title. And that was cool. I get it. And if he enjoyed that process, that's awesome. The current state of Ashes of Creation right now, there are some people that really like it. And I am so glad that people like it. I want people to enjoy games. I don't care what game it is. I don't discriminate. I just want people to like games. If they're enjoying it, great for them. But for most people, Ashes of Creation right now is the biggest grind in the world. And there's nothing to do. There's literally nothing to do but go kill mobs to get XP. Go kill the same group of mobs over and over and over again. And ideally in a group. And that's what people are doing. And it's a fun social experience for some people. Maybe some people grind it out solo. But literally what they're doing is just killing the same group of mobs over and over and over again. I think one of the few things that makes it enjoyable is it actually is difficult. Okay? It's not trivial because it's hard. If you're doing something that's relatively difficult, you can die. if you're not careful. The second part of that is that if you do die, you get a and you're grinding for XP, right? If you do die, then you get you lose XP. Okay, so the opposite of what you want. So it's high risk. Okay, and then the reward is getting the thing that you want, right? So you're getting a reward from it. If you look at that and you compare it to ESO, right? Generally, the difficulty is not there. It'll be there for some people, but for most of us, it's not for overland content, right? I just showed you overland content. It's definitely not there. If you die, what have you lost? A soul gem, a few minutes of time. Time is really the biggest thing that it has cost you, which sucks. And it's the same in Ashes, costs you time as well, but that sucks. But in ESO, that doesn't exist. And then what is the reward? And generally, we've talked about this, right? This has been our feedback to them that we want more rewards, and there aren't enough rewards in game. There's not usually that great of rewards. There's really not. And so that's what makes Overland not enjoyable. And that has been the case for forever. What I just explained to you guys, I have never thought about before. Okay? I'm explaining it to you. I mean, I like in general, but I've never thought about it with relation to ESO. The developers of ESO, and again, I'm trying not to be, I feel like I'm being an arrogant prick, and I don't want to be, but like, I know that some of them know this, and they understand this, but why do they keep doing the same thing over and over again? I guess because it's easy. None of them they don't seem to know this because they keep making the same mistake over and over and over again and doing the same thing. And you know what? They're not losing money, so why stop doing it? That's really what it comes down to. But those are the things that they need to change to make it actually worth it. You know, going in to do the night market, right? Again, it's not hard if you bring a tank. It will be for some people, so that box will be checked. What are the rewards? The problem with the rewards right now is it's this uber complicated thing. You get rewards you get a lot of participation trophies. You don't get a lot of rewards for actually killing something. Okay. There's a lot of rewards you can get, and there's like 50 ways of doing it. And essentially the rewards in ESO and the night market are made so that everybody can get them. They're participation trophies is what they are. And I'm not knocking participation trophies, just to be clear, but it's not the same. You don't want to go kill a boss so you can get that reward. There's very, very few things. And the reason is when they put those things in there, and they have in the past, the average player complains a lot because they can't get it. It's locked behind something. And instead of ZOS deciding when that's okay and when it's not okay, they've just said, no, it's not okay. We'll give everybody participation trophies for the most part. And that's why you see very little rewards. And so that's why the people that play a lot aren't very happy with the rewards. Because again, a lot of it's just participation trophies. And then there's absolutely no risk, right? What if you die? Well, it doesn't matter. Endless Archive is the one thing where they tried attempting that, and the punishment for dying is having to start over again, which sucks. It's not fun. I would argue that generally, if I spent 2 hours getting to level 5 or 6 or whatever it took me to get there, and then I die, that's 2 hours. That's a huge, huge punishment. So the risk is, yes, it's real, so you do care, but how many times are you going to want to do that? How many times are you going to be, you're going to want to spend 2, 3, 4 hours to get to a point and then you lose all that progress? Some people will, but those are people that like playing a certain type of game. It's not the general market. Zine says, you wouldn't put LeBron in Little League basketball. Exactly. Why would a game be any different? You need to separate players by skill levels. That's the only way I can think to do this. Maybe you can set your own personal overland difficulty. Yeah. Well, and the thing is, if you set the overland difficulty though, too, like if I can just change my difficulty so that it's more engaging, why would I do that if I'm getting the same rewards as somebody else? I probably wouldn't. You really need to up the rewards. But what's going to happen every single time you do this is people are going to be like, oh, well, I want the better rewards. And the answer to that is like, I'm sorry, like you got to have a higher skill level if you want the better rewards. This always happens in games, and it really comes down to the developers understanding and knowing that they need to like make that choice, and that is a thing that they need to decide, like, hey, people are going to complain. It happens with Helldivers, and they've made Helldivers so easy now that it's not enjoyable for those who have it on level 10 difficulty. And the problem in Helldivers, which is the same as ESO, is like I turn the difficulty all the way up. I can't go any higher. They could always go down in difficulty, right? So, but they refuse to because they feel like they want a participation trophy is what it comes down to. And that is just not fun with a lot of things. You know, you want to be rewarded by doing something harder. That's a big core part of, I mean, it's what motivates you to get better, right? Like, oh, I'm not there yet, but if I want to, I could get there. So anyways, yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to talk about this. I got a decent number of comments of people that were saying essentially, they enjoyed the grind or whatever, and grind's good. And a lot of people that were saying grinds are just part of MMOs. That was like a couple of comments I got, that people just felt like grind was intrinsic to MMOs. And I don't think that's true. I also think that is a product of 20-year-old game design that we know how to do better now if we simply choose to do it. And the real trick, difficulties is definitely going to be needed, but it's also just good game design. I gave you one example after thinking about it for 5 minutes about how you could make things where it would be a little bit more engaging for players, right? Have bosses, as soon as you kill one, have it be its own little mini, essentially like a mini, I'm trying to think of the name of that style of game. I'm drawing a blank now. But, where you roguelike game, right? Where you keep going and you get better rewards. And if more people come, the other part of that is if more people come, it's an even more social experience. Hey, everybody get over here. You're yelling in zone chat, right? You're yelling in your guild and you're saying, hey guys, we just killed the 5th round of this mob. The 6th one is like guaranteed drops, or is, you got, right? Like you tell people, here's a hype reason to get over here right now. Come get to this zone and help us do this thing. I think that's really cool, right? So one of the many ways that it could be done, I'm sure there's plenty of others, but what they're doing here is essentially what they've done. And I can't put too fine a point on this because I think it sounds harsh, guys, but I'm just telling you what is going on. That's all I'm doing. Essentially what they've done, all they've done here is they've made a public dungeon, okay? This is a public dungeon. Then what they've said is we'll up the difficulty. We'll make it a little bit harder, and we'll tell everybody it's a group content thing, right? So we've upped the difficulty. We've told everybody it's a public dungeon. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add inside of the public dungeon, we're going to add a normal dungeon that's instance for 4 players. Presumably the difficulty goes up. I don't know. And then inside of that, we're going to put a trial. That's what or a 12-man piece of content that they've called it a trial. So it's a trial. What new and innovative thing have they done here? They made a pyramid scheme that forces people to play content they don't want to play to get their hours up so that they get that playtime number up. That's all they've done. That's literally all they've done, which I think honestly was the goal. I said this during the live stream, or when we watched the video of their live stream, right? When they're talking about the market and what they were doing with this update. And they tried to spin everything like they were doing it for players, and I was like, they're not doing this for players, right? It's like the EA lawyer telling oh, people love surprise mechanics when they mean loot boxes, and it's like people don't love loot boxes. People are addicted to them sometimes, but people don't love them. It's not. No one's like, ooh, loot boxes. I really want to. I really instead of buying the thing that I want. I just wish so much that instead of like buying the thing I want, I could get a crate. Oh, did they disable them here? They probably did, so you couldn't see what was in them and the poor drop chances. That's just another way of like obfuscating the drop chances. Um, but yeah, they wanted to, they want people to, they advertise. Sorry, I get heated. They advertise the mount, the epic mount, and they don't tell you that an epic mount has a 0.1% drop chance. And that the average amount someone is going to have to spend to get that mount is going to be like $700. They don't tell you that. They advertise the mount, and it's like, this is very anti-consumer. And I think that what is going on here is also anti-consumer. And I think that, I don't think it's all malicious. I think a lot of it is just incompetence, that just poor game design. And they seem like they don't know, like they don't understand these things. And I understand, game design is a big thing. Okay. And, having someone to make models, right? To make really good looking models. That's one thing. Having someone to design UI is another thing. Having someone to design the game mechanics themselves is a third thing. But there's actually like 50 things that you need to make a fully functioning game. There's a lot of stuff regardless. And so you don't expect everybody to have all of these things. For example, someone who's really great at art, I would probably expect them to not be really into the game mechanic design part of making a game. That's what I would typically not expect people. Those are very disparate skills to have. And so that's okay. But there should be somebody at the company that picks up on this stuff and realizes the inherent problems of how big the skill gap is and wanting to address that so that you can make something that is fun for all players. Because I will tell you that this is the problem. Even if they design the night market for me, not you guys, not other people like me, literally for me, okay? The problem with that is that if they do that, it is going to, I don't want them to do that because it would alienate most people because they're not designing something for most people. And just like with one size fits all, it means that one size fits none, essentially. And I think that's the problem that they're going to continue to have until they learn the lesson of they have to have more difficulty levels. And really, I think the problem with that is that they think that they don't have time. And my answer to that is that I don't think they have time not to do it. I don't think they have time to continue to make lackluster content that is upsetting and alienating for their fans. And I think until they realize that they're just going to have the same problem over and over again. Zine says, meanwhile, everyone is buying another box and thinking this is the one. Surely it's perfectly designed to make people buy more. Exactly. Those gambling mechanics, I know that was a minute ago, but these gambling mechanics are just like they don't belong in games. They really don't. And I wish that more games developers would put their foot down and say, no, we're not doing that. So anyways, guys, I think I've said everything I got to say. Sounds like you guys are mostly listening today is what it appears. Hey, what's up, Hawkeyes? How long have they been working on this update before putting it out? Hawkeyes, I don't know exactly. I can give you a really good answer, but I don't know specifically for this. I can tell you that they will oftentimes say they've been working on something for like 9 months, 12 months, or longer. And in the past, they've said they've had up to like a 24-month lead time. Rich has said something to that. Don't quote me on that, but something to that effect. Then when they've actually talked about it more and actually doing the work, and this happens a lot with games companies, they mean when they give you the long number, it's like when you hear an MMO has been in development for 10 years, it was an idea in somebody's head for the first 4 years. And what they usually mean is typically they spend like 3 months. They literally operate in quarters. Is 3 to 6 months, 6 months being a lot. They've said that like, oh, we spent 6 months on this, like that was a lot of time. Okay. And I'm just judging that based on interviews and what they have said. So they could have given the wrong impression or whatever, but from what we know, typically it's 3 months. They said they're trying to change these deadlines so they have more time to work on content, and so that's also a thing that they've said and they're maybe trying to do, but we don't. I don't suppose we know exactly. And you can also see that by the amount of content they put out and their general schedule. It kind of agrees with that, which is why I'm and they've said it. They said it maybe not in so many words, but they've told us that they spent 3 months developing something. They've told us they spent 6 months, and they said that that's about average. That's about typical for them. So, all right, guys. Well, I think that's what I got to say about this. I just thought it would be an interesting topic. I was hoping that we'd get a little bit more engagement, but I realized that maybe not everybody is as into game design and has thought about it probably, understandably, as much as I have. So, but if you like this kind of thing, do me a favor and hit a like on the video so that I know that you enjoy hearing about it at least. I'm happy to, continue to do these things and kind of expound upon this stuff and give my take and my experience as someone who does this full time as a job, So, just let me know. But give a thumbs up. It certainly helps. Give me feedback. Random along these lines, when I've done some of these IRL streams where I talk about real world problems, I've had a few people that are like, man, it seems like your audience or some people in your audience are very anti what you're saying. And whenever I've looked at the data, I'll get like 2 or 3 times the number of likes on those videos as I would on other videos. Even though the views might be low, the people who actually watch it really like it. And it's like, oh no, it's not that. It's just that there's a few people that are very vocal that they don't like it. And so it's kind of interesting, but it's always good feedback for me. I look at that kind of stuff to decide, is that a topic that we should cover or talk about more or what have you. Think there's any chance they make any changes to what the community wants, or is it a lost hope? That's a good question, Hawkeyes. I think the problem that they have is when they put something on PTS, usually what they're looking for is they usually can't do much feedback because they've already made all the big decisions, right? They've already made the night market what it is, and they can only change little things. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for little changes. And what happens continually, one of the big problems that ESO has is that they will put out content and the core idea doesn't sit well with the community, but they already decide that they already moved forward with that. And they've already spent 3 months working on it. And now they're willing to tweak it some. Not willing to throw it away and start over, not willing and not able to make big changes. So, and this happens with all games. This happens with new games coming out and a lot of other things. By the time feedback is asked for, it's too late to make major changes. It would take too much development time to redesign the night market. So I think that they can make small change. And I see this again and again. I've talked about it before, in various updates that like people want this huge change. And I'm telling you, they can't do that. That is more than they are willing to do. And probably even have time a lot of times to do. So is all hope lost? I mean, they're going to try. I imagine it seems like they're going to try. I just think they miss the mark so much by not planning on difficulties. And how are they going to fix that problem? If they do what I suggested, they need a programmer to code that, because that is a new mechanic that does not exist in the game. And I also didn't mention that, like with what I suggested, they also need a bunch of preview mechanics, which they always do. That's a standard practice for them. And so they would need a bigger area, and they would need more areas for when the mechanics show up that you could have seen them beforehand. So they would need to redesign the entire area to a large extent, and I don't think they can do that. I don't think there's any way. I think our best hope is that they tweak the difficulty to a place where most people, more people are happy than not, but there's going to be a bunch of people on all sides of the people that are not very good are going to feel like they've been completely abandoned because they didn't get any new content because it's all too difficult for them. And they don't want to play with other players and whatever. And then on the other end, there's going to be the people that are thinking it's way too easy, right? There's going to be those two groups no matter what, and there's nothing they can really do now to change that. So that's going to happen. The other thing is the grind is pretty bad, and what they're fighting against is community feedback and money. And what do you think they're going to choose, right? Like they're going to try to find some balance. Maybe we'll temper it, but they're going to err on the side of getting their playtime numbers up because they feel like that attributes or equates to more money. And you know, that's all. That's what they care about. So, not really anything else to say. That's what they care about. So, that's what's going to happen. So it doesn't look great. I hope that they find a sweet spot that the most people are that they can are very happy with the difficulty of the content, and you know, I hope it's good for a lot of people. But yeah, super random. But how many gigabytes is that game at this point? Oh, ESO. I think it's like 140 or something. I don't even haven't even looked. Properties. 136. Yeah. All right, guys. Let me do this real quick. I'm going to kick you guys to a commercial. I'm going to pay some bills. And I'm going to bio. And then when I come back, we're going to jump over. We're going to play some Helldivers. And then at 8:30 tonight, and I might take a break at some point here in an hour and a half or so, or 2 hours. We'll see. We'll see how things are going. But we're gonna play some Helldivers, and then tonight we've got a trial with Nani. We got a training group in ESO. So every time I cover ESO and I tell people what's going on, I'm like, hey, you know, there's some things that aren't good. People think I'm quitting ESO. I'm not quitting ESO, guys. I'm still playing. I mean, I'm doing a training group tonight. I'm just being realistic about what's going on. All right. I appreciate those of you guys who just tuned in for the ESO or the Game Dev Talk. Appreciate you letting me know if you like this content. We will, you know, yeah, I know some of you guys are dipping out, so I appreciate you guys for tuning in. And we'll catch you guys later if you want to tune back in for the trial. And for those who are sticking around, we'll just be jumping over here, so we're not going anywhere. Zine says, yeah, that's why people need to hold devs accountable and actually stop playing when it gets bad. Yes. Otherwise, the devs are just going to look at the stats and be like, it can't be that bad, right? Yeah. I think that you have to continually vote with your money. Absolutely. And that's why I encourage people, even when they're playing a game that I like, that they don't like something, to constantly vote with your money. I vote with my money in Helldivers all the time. I have more. This is premium currency in the top right here. This is more than I need to buy the next thing that I need, and I don't need anything. And it's because I've spent a little bit of money, not much, to buy the premium currency to get more stuff. Yeah. And I do that because I honestly, it's like I've gotten so much enjoyment out of this game, I should pay a little bit more for it. Because I want these guys next game. I want them to have money to make their next game. So, you know, you got to vote with your money both ways. If you're over something, you're not happy with it, vote with your money. All right. For real this time, I'll be right back, guys. I'm going to kick to a commercial bio, and then I'll be right back. We'll play some Helldivers. Cool, guys. Here on YouTube, hopefully you know the deal. I am going to kick you guys over to the next stream, and we'll see you guys there. It should kick you over. If it doesn't, just hit the refresh button, and you know where to find me. Yeah, appreciate it, Zine. All right. And if you're on Twitch,